Hello, everyone. My name is Deneen White, and I am the host of the Coffee in the Green Room podcast. Here on Coffee in the Green Room, we have the conversations behind the scenes that maybe you don't have from stage. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Lori Bruton. Lori, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Deneen.
You're welcome. So, Lori, you are an amazing, inspirational person. Something that you do is you help women overcome toxic relationships. So, before we start talking about that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became qualified to do this?
Yes, well, it's mainly from my life experiences. So I grew up normal life, as some people would say, the white picket fence, perfect family. My parents went through a divorce, but then I got married to this wonderful man, had two adorable sons that are the best gifts ever. And then all of a sudden, all the stuff I'd buried inside of me for all those years came bursting out, causing a breakdown. And, it was almost cost me my life, actually.
Yeah.
And I just lost hope. I then got involved with a toxic relationship, which is like, whoa, what just happened? Who is this?
Yeah.
So I became someone I just didn't even know. And I'm glad she's not me anymore. Like, this is the new me. I reinvented myself. But because of that experience, I realized, actually, it was on the stage of some mutual friend we know. And he's like, you're in a toxic relationship, right? And I said, are you sure? And from there, I made the decision, okay, enough is enough, and broke it off. So I kept hanging on, didn't even really recognize it. And once I made that decision, then I even wrote my first book. And from there, I've been helping people that have gone through similar things.
Yeah. Talk about your first book. How did that help you? And tell us about your first book. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I knew, I didn't know at the time, but that event, something told me, book another week to stay longer afterwards. I'm like, okay, sure, it's Florida. Why not?
Who doesn't love Florida?
Exactly. So I did. And then after I made that decision, it was huge too, because Gary asked me, he goes, okay, you ready to make a phone call? I go, right now?
Hold on. So let me tell you, Gary Coxe is our mutual friend, and he was on The Doctor. So he's known for helping people make transformations. Like, he literally within 10 minutes, he could talk to you and help you make transformations. So Gary Coxe is the person about whom she's speaking, who is our mutual friend. So you were on stage at his event, and he asked you to please make this phone call.
Yes, once we decided, okay, he asked me first, well, what do you like to do? And I said, I always love to write. I want to be a published author. And then somehow we get into relationship conversation. And that's where I told him I had been in this relationship for about 14 years at that point.
Oh, wow.
And that's when he asked me the right questions. I don't remember what they were, but I know that then that's when he said, you realize this is a toxic relationship, right? And I didn't want to admit it. I maybe
Nobody
kinda
who
knew
wants
it,
to admit that. Like, no,
right,
hi, yeah, my name is Deneen. I've been in a toxic relationship for 14 years. Nobody
right.
wants to admit that. So what did that do for you?
So it was scary, but some courage just rose up inside of me at that moment. He's like, well, are you going to stay and keep doing what you're doing, or are you ready to make a decision? I'm like, uh, okay, I'm done. So I threw my notebook on the stage, and that's when he's like, are you ready to make a phone call? I'm like, oh, right now?
Now you're stepping on some toes, sir.
So he also asked me before the phone call, and this guy I was with is a musician and he plays by ear. So, he's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And then Gary asked me, so what do you like to do for fun? And somehow my dad came into the conversation because I didn't have that closer relationship with him. And yet that's where I learned my entrepreneurship. So somehow my dad came in. I don't remember the details on that. But I said how I loved water and boats. So he's like, okay, so pretend you're in a boat and your hands on the throttle and your dad's hand is on top of yours, giving you that strength. I'm like, whoa. And then what I didn't know until afterwards, the whole audience, when I did make that phone call and he's like, okay, pretend put your hand on the throttle. He had the whole audience with their hands on a pretend throttle as well.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, that
That's
was
powerful.
powerful. So then after I finally, said, hey, it's me and we're not healthy for each other. And I had that conversation and he's like, oh, so I have somebody else? And I thought, what? I said, no. And this other courage came up inside me right then. And I said, I have me. And I thought, who just said that?
The real Lori said that.
Right? So then it's like, okay. And I like, yeah, we really need to be done. And I felt like someone else was talking because like, wow, that took a lot of courage.
Yeah.
So we did. I ended the phone call and it was like full throttle, when it came to an end. And after that, I thought I was just going to collapse on the stage. I'm like, oh my goodness. And my son was there with me. So that was awesome. And then Gary's sound team played Mandisa's song Overcomer. So they're blaring that. And my son came up on stage and Gary's there in this big group hug. And a good thing because I felt like they were holding me up at that point.
They probably were. They probably were.
And that was one of the hardest decisions. But you know what happened after that?
What?
There was one man in the audience and he came up to me and he said, I own my own publishing company and I would like to help you publish your first book.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa. So that extra week I had booked, that's when it poured out of me. And so he got me started. I did end up self-publishing it in the end. However, I knew the name Whole to Whole, HOLE to WHOLE, because I was becoming whole. And the subtitle's Journey to Hope and Transformation, because I had lost hope. And without hope, people perish.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I've been actually called the Queen of Hope. And now that's my story and that experience and the courage and boldness and the quiet little invisible Lori, she's gone. And the one who got in that relationship in the first place and the shame and guilt I felt. Yeah. Whoa. So thank goodness I forgave myself and, I kept moving forward. And Les Brown always says, if life knocks you on your back, something like that, try to look up, because if you can look up, you can get up.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So it took a lot, but I looked up, I got up, and I didn't give up.
That's so important because I think so many times people, they fall down and they're like, okay, obviously I'm done.
Yes.
But a principle that I live by is that it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. It matters that you get up one more time than you fall down. And you've done that. You have such a story of resilience.
Yes.
Which is so inspiring, which is why I'm so excited for you to help women overcome toxic relationships. Because like you said, you hit on so many key points. Like so many times there's shame involved because we're like, oh, well, like that isn't who I am. Like, how did this happen?
Right.
And like forgiving yourself is so important. And you having the opportunity to work with people is like, I'm so excited to see the lives that you're going to transform, Lori. So you're here with us in studio doing this podcast. We're so excited to have you. And you worked with Michael and myself for Vision Craft.
Yes.
And today you had the opportunity to shoot a video. And tell me about that process for you, because I know, well, you answered some questions, which are proprietary, but you answered some questions and talk about that script and the fact that, talk about like the clarity that brought for you on your mission in life now.
Yes. So as a writer, don't you know, the original rough draft script, it didn't quite flow. It had the main components. But like you said, I needed to make it my own.
Mhm.
I needed to make it flow. It had to have power behind the words.
Yeah.
And that, even when then I read it, I felt it. It stirred up emotion. And I knew it was powerful. And whoever hears that message, it's going to change their lives and possibly save lives.
Yeah.
Because I almost died under a truck in a church parking lot, which was a defining moment.
Oh my gosh.
Did I just say that out loud?
I feel like you did. And so now I'm the queen of stories. So you're not allowed to leave that. Tell us a little bit more about this, because I mean, talk about resilience.
Yes. So that happened when I was on a virtual stage with Les Brown, and Les said, tell me a defining moment, a moment in your life where after that, nothing was ever the same. Don't I think of the most embarrassing moment of my life?
And Les has that effect on people sometimes.
And I said, oh, yeah, when I ended up drunk under a truck in a church parking lot. And he's like, wow, that's some crazy stuff right there.
I can't process this right now.
And the thing is, I wasn't a drinker. Like, that's
why I'm so confused.
I know. It's like, I didn't mean to say this today, but here it is. There you go.
Here we are.
We are. Raw and real. That's the other
behind
thing
the scenes. This is the green room, Lori.
Yes. So, yes, that was another defining moment where I shared that with somebody. And I feel like, that took a lot of courage just to say that out loud at that time. And even right now. And the fact that I was there to minister to other people. I was in a class, but all my old stuff that I'd buried all those years just came bursting out of me. And I had a lovely family. Everything was great. And then that's the thing that I want people to know. If you're just stuffing all that for years and years and years, it's going to come busting out some way, somehow. And that's where people do turn to things and become addicted, or, it could be a lot of things they turn to. So I just feel like even a relationship with yourself, not just other relationships like the toxic one I was in, the toxic relationship could be with yourself.
Yeah.
So I help people like, hey, where are you at? I call it the ABCs of achieve, believe, conceive, where are you? Accept where you are.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't mean you have to stay there, but you have to look at where you are now before you know how to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. So important.
Definitely. And I love the cover of my first book, going back to that for a moment, because it's a girl sitting on a dock, like looking out at the ocean, but she is all in puzzle pieces. And there's a piece missing out of the center of her back.
Oh, wow.
And that missing piece is a representative of a few different things. But in order to find out what that is, you got to read the book.
So you have to check. Yeah, we can't give you all the secrets here. This is coffee in the green room, but we can't give all the secrets.
Right. So then back to that moment with Les, and how expert he is helping people tell their story. So from that moment of being in that situation, and then he's like, okay, but you're here now. So you did get back up. And so now you are giving people hope. And so he took that story of the lowest point and then he helped tell it. So that's where my second book, The Lori Factor, Live the Life You Were Born to Live, was born.
That's awesome.
So the LORI each stands for something. And that's the message in itself of how other people can use my message in that story to overcome a lot of their own challenges, no matter what they've been through.
I love how you put everything in stories, because Vision Craft, what we're about, is helping people tell their stories. And that's something you are so masterful at. And I'm just really excited, Lori, for the future to see what's to come. So for anyone who is watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, where can they find you?
So the best place, I am on social media, but I do have the website. Everything's there. It's a good place to start. So that's simply my name, LoriBruton.com. So LoriBruton.com. So many people switch it to Burton, but it's Bruton, like brewing a ton of coffee.
Oh, I'll never forget that now. You had me at coffee, Lori.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, Lori, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing your story. So excited to see the lives that are going to be transformed as you step into that superhero, Lori Bruton. So thank you so much for being here today.
And thanks for having me. And that's what I love too, because even telling your story can be healing, whether it's verbally or in writing.
Yeah.
And that's my superpower's writing. So I look forward to helping other people maybe write a book or somehow tell their story,
Yeah.
however is helpful.
Yeah. So if you are someone and you're like, you know what, I have a story to tell, I'm in a relationship that's toxic, whether it's with myself or someone else, definitely check out Lori. And I promise you that she will help you navigate those waters. And if you are listening to this podcast, please make sure you hit subscribe. I have so many amazing people coming up that are going to be on the podcast, so many amazing guests. So click on the link below. Make sure you subscribe to the Coffee in the Green Room podcast. Check out Lori. Have your life changed. And again, Lori, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks again for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Stop listening. Click subscribe.